All right, welcome to another stats warm up. So, we need to survey a random sample of ticket buyers at a baseball stadium on their experience at the game. Name the sampling method described. So, this is kind of what we did in the notes, just a different setting, just making sure that you're comfortable with the different techniques and you can identify them given a scenario. All right, so survey the first 200 people, 250 people who enter the stadium. That sounds really easy. And if something sounds really easy, there's a good chance that it's a convenience sample. So you're not really trying to randomize it. You're just doing something that's convenient. Surveying everyone at the game. All right, that would be our census. That's what we call it when we try to survey everyone. Leave a survey on everyone's seat and ask them to return it on their way out of the stadium. All right, so I mean, in some ways, it's a census because we're trying to survey everybody, but the kind of wishy-washy nature of just, oh, here's the survey, like if you can fill it out, return it on the way out of the stadium, makes this qualify as a voluntary response. Survey every 200th person. So if you have like a definitive rule of who you're going to survey, that's a systematic sample. Randomly select several sections and survey all the customers sitting in those seats. All right, so the sections become your clusters. And this idea of surveying all is kind of the other clue that you're dealing with cluster sampling. All right. Randomly generate 250 seat numbers and survey the passengers or customers who sit there. That would be the simple random sample or SRS. And then randomly choose 50, that's a lot of randomness. Randomly choose 50 random customers from the field level, randomly choose 100 customers from the mid-level seats, finally choose 100 random customers and from the upper deck. That should just say from the upper deck. Jeez, there's typos all over this. Sorry about that. Finally choose 100 random customers from the upper deck. So each of these, the field level, the mid-level, the upper deck, these are your strata. So this is one strata, this is another strata, this is another strata, because you're assuming that each of those groups has things in common. So this would be our stratified sample. And usually people are pretty good with all of these. They sometimes just goof these two up. All right, so remember, stratified, you're dividing them by some characteristic and then surveying each group. Cluster, you're hoping that each group has a little bit of everything in it, and then you're talking to everyone in that group. All right, so those are the two ways that you can kind of try to keep those straight. At a party, there are 30 students over the age of 21 and 20 students under the age of 21. You choose at random 3 of those over 21 and separately choose at random 2 of those under 21 to interview about attitudes toward alcohol. You have given every student at the party the same chance of being interviewed. What is that chance? Is this a simple random sample? Why or why not? All right, so if we're taking 3 out of 30 or 2 out of 20, doesn't matter which, 3 out of 30 is 1 out of 10, 2 out of 20 is 1 out of 10. So that's the chance that we're giving everyone of being selected. But just having the same chance of being selected is not enough to make it a simple random sample. All right. This is a stratified sample, not a simple random sample. Because we're forcing selections from each group. ASRS doesn't place restrictions on the groups. Okay? So anytime you're kind of limiting it, or anytime you're saying, I have to have this many of this, have to have this many of that, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just no longer counts as a simple random sample. All right, simple random sample is very exact in that everyone has the same chance, and you can't put any sort of restrictions on who's being selected. In June 2008, Parade magazine posed the following question: should drivers be banned from using all cell phones? Readers were encouraged to vote online at parade.com. The July 13th, 2008 issue of Parade reported the results as 85% said yes and 15% said no. What kind of sample did Parade obtain? Right, this would be a voluntary response sample. All right. Participants had to seek out the survey. All right, explain why this sampling method is probably biased. Is 85% probably higher or lower than the true percent of all adults who believe cell phone use should be banned? All right, so this approach is biased because only those with strong opinions are likely to reply. All right, so that just deals with why is it biased? And then in terms of the question of which direction is it biased, it's likely biased towards the ban because the current status quo is that you can use phones and I'm going to put in parentheses there, hands-free. And the reason this matters is people trying to change a rule are likely to be more active. All right. If the rule is already in place, you're kind of like, yeah, it's there, whatever, no big deal. But if you're actively trying to change something, you're likely to be spending more attention. You're likely to be paying more attention to these things. You're likely to put more effort into it because your goal is to enact some sort of change. So it's probably biased in a higher direction. All right. And then number 10 is a similar question to the last warm up. But since this is something that kids sometimes goof up, I just wanted to drive it home one more time. So a department store mails a customer satisfaction survey to people who make credit card purchases at the store. This month, 45,000 people made credit card purchases. Surveys are mailed to 1,000 of those people chosen at random, and 137 people returned the survey form. Identify the population in the sample. So again, I talked about this last warm up. I'll just reiterate it. The population part is usually easy. All right, so the population here would be the 45,000 people who made credit card purchases. The sample, and this is the part that kids sometimes goof up, is the 1,000 people we randomly selected. Now, we didn't get data from all 1,000 of those people, but those 1,000 people were what we defined as the sample. When we created our research project, when we created our survey, when we created our whatever we created, we defined the sample as 1,000 people. All right, so the sample is the 1,000 people that we randomly selected, and then we have to note that 137 responded and 863 did not respond. Right? Because the fact that 863 did not respond could be important. Right? It could be that those people have something in common and that that's an important part of your study or findings or what have you. So we don't just pretend like they didn't exist. All right, they're an important piece of data. All right, so we say that our sample was the 1,000 people, and then we break it down by those that responded versus those that didn't respond and see if there's anything that we can learn just from that breakdown. All right. So again, most of this is pretty straightforward. Once you kind of know the different types, you just have to be able to match them. And then some of the stuff we've been seeing for a few classes now. So again, if there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, best of luck on the notes.